The night has come, it's cold and losing my control. Your light is gone, and lonely darkness fill my soul. I wish that you could save me from my isolation. It's way too complicated. Let's start this conversation. Let's start this conversation. We got no relation.
Good evening, and if you're just tuning in, you're listening live to 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast and out of Mississippi and 107.7. Hang on, guys, I can't talk and do things at the same time, obviously. Give me a sec. Anyways, I'm 107.7 out of the beautiful city of New Orleans, Louisiana. This is UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio Network. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin. As you know, I always start out with a bit of housekeeping first. We have an amazing guest for you this evening, but he's aware that I do all the housekeeping first, and then we're going to introduce him. So again, my name's Lorilei Potvin. I am a Canadian psychic medium, crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher, and mentor. I'm also a registered nurse, and I am a budding, I always say I'm getting better at it, animal communicator, as well as extremely well-versed in near-death experiences, having had one as a toddler myself, and I've studied them professionally and personally for over 40 years, and I'm extremely well-versed as well in the paranormal. I always say I didn't go looking for it, it found me, and we shared some of my family's story in our previously very, very haunted house on the Travel Channel's Paranormal Survivor, Season 4, Episode 9, and it's called Demonic Hauntings. I did not name it. You can find it all over the place. I believe there's even a copy on YouTube. I'd also like to thank Carnation, the wonderful brand of Carnation that is known globally around the world. They actually sponsor all the shows on Monday nights here on UPRN. And so please, if you see Carnation, please try to support them, because they're the reason why all the great shows that come to you on Mondays are because of them. And I always like to say at the beginning and the end, we have Preston Dennett and Dolly Saffron coming up next in about 2 hours with the Light Gate. So stay tuned after we're finished here. If you guys like what you see, please like, share, and subscribe, and let all your friends and family know about UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio Network, or as we call it, UPRN. There really is something for everybody here. It's not all just UFO and paranormal. The network's been around for 25 plus years, and we have multiple shows that stream daily live. And when we're not streaming live, the archive server kicks into the last 25 plus years and pulls up some great shows and content. So we really are live 24 hours a day. If you want to watch us on TV, you can. The network does have its own TV channel. It is on Roku. And how you're going to find the channel is you're going to the channel store on Roku. There's a search bar, and you're going to type in UFO space P as in paranormal, and you're looking for, I think we're the third or fourth one down in the drop down list. You're looking for UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio, and that's how you can find us. And 80% of our audience is audio only. We do broadcast to every country in the world, believe it or not. And I always say, if you can't see us, you can't join the conversation, and we'd love to have you join us. So if you're listening and you're thinking, who are they talking to? Why can I not see the chat? I'm going to rattle it off really quick for you. You can find us on Facebook under my name, Lorilei Potvin, or the network UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio Network. We're streaming on LinkedIn under Lorilei Potvin, as well as my YouTube channel, The Angel Rock with Lorilei Potvin, and the network UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio YouTube, as well as the Twitch for UPRN. And we are streaming on Joe Montaldo, who is the owner of our network. We're streaming on his Rumble under Joe Jalmon. And lastly, I did get Instagram to work, so we're streaming on the Angel Rock. There's a little trick with that because there's a big flashing sign that comes up across the top if you're producing. Instagram's not working, but we did get it to work. Let me see, did I forget anything here? I always have a little checklist here just in case. what I'd like to mention too, there's been a few little issues, and I'm kind of surprised by that. But you know what? If you're here and you're here to join in the chat, please be kind. Okay, there's nothing wrong with expressing your opinion. Do it kindly, do it respectfully. Bullying is not tolerated, and I'm giving the warning now. We don't usually have that problem, but we've had a few little issues as of late. So if you're not here to be kind, please, this isn't the space for you. All right. Now on to our amazing guest. Now I am going to have to wear my glasses. I see you, Heidi Gall. You said you're going over to YouTube. Okay. Let me find his bio here. So we have beside me Mark Beale. He's a hypnotherapist specializing in past life, between life regressions, and spirit releasement. He's given over 5,000 regression sessions as a practitioner since 2006. As a teacher, he has tens of thousands. My grandpuppy is on my court. Sorry, guys. um, as a teacher, he has tens of thousands of students. There's video courses and mentors, and certifies advanced students in spiritual regression therapies through his Past Life Awakening Institute. It is across the bottom, and we're going to be talking about his book called Past Life Awakening: 7 Regression Cases or Case Studies Illustrate 7 Spiritual Laws. So welcome, Mark. I'm so glad to have you here.
It's fantastic to be here, Lorilei. Thanks very much for having me.
Did you say that you were, I didn't ask you before, but in your email, are you in Brazil? Is that what you had said?
I'm now in Paraguay, so I'm traveling in South America for a year.
That is so impressive.
Yeah.
I just think that's amazing. So I don't even know the time difference there. I'm usually pretty good, but you said in Brazil you were an hour ahead of me, right?
That's right. Yeah, one hour ahead of Eastern. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's okay. So that would be, I'm trying to remember, because we have some provinces in Canada that would be in that time zone. And I feel very foolish. Do you think I could remember? I'll say GMT. GMT maybe, is it -4 for you guys? I'm not sure. It would be -6.
Greenwich Mean Time. I'm not. Yeah. So actually, it is. Yeah, I did talk to someone in England today, and it was 4 hours. Yeah, it's my 7:30 a.m. There 11:30. So yes.
Yeah, because I have people on from all over the world, and then you got to give Gavin Lee Davies a huge shout out. He's got O Books, and there's a few other publishing little side steps with the company, and he sends me the most incredible authors like yourself to have on the show. So I have to thank him for that. Let's just say hi quick to people here. So we got Heidi Gall. Hi, Lorilei and Mark. Much love from Boulder, Colorado. Yes, I heard about that, Heidi. She said, I just unlocked my Meta account. Yay, meaning Facebook. I'm glad you could get that straightened out. Got Julie Jean Bassett. She says, hello, Lorilei and everyone. And Julie, you guys, I always give her a shout out. If you've got pets and you are wondering why they are doing the things that they're doing, including you're at your wit's end, and you've tried everything. Maybe you're thinking, I don't want to rehome my fur baby, but what can I do? Julie is a person I strongly suggest that you reach out to. I have I've worked with her, with my pets. Miraculous things have happened. I know that I've recommended her to other people. She also can communicate with pets across the Rainbow Bridge too. And she just had an animal communication course at the end, I think, of June. I took her first one that she had a couple, well, probably, what was it, Julie, 6 or 7 months ago. That's how I started doing the animal communication myself. She's also an incredible shamanic practitioner. I know she has worked with many mentors, including Alberto Bellotto. And Julie, I wrote down your website, so I can't keep saying that I forgot. So you can get a hold of her on Facebook and on juliejeanbassett.com for the pet stuff. For the shamanic practitioner things, and believe me, it was life-changing, the session I had, and I need to have another one with her. You can go to her website. You can go to her website. It's whitetailshamanichealing, I think, .com. I don't have the one I wrote it down on. I'm going to find it right now, Julie, because I wrote it down. Yep, let's see. Glasses on, because I said every time I tell you, I forget. Yeah, whitetailshamanichealing.com. I remembered it. So welcome. And I think that's everybody here. Everybody's late tonight. You should get a whole crew in here tonight, but they'll pop in. They will. So, Mark, I have had a few hypnotherapists on the show, but not with the topics that you've written about. So let's talk about that, because a lot of people have a lot of misnomers about hypnotherapy. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, why you got into it and such.
Yeah, well, so hypnotherapy is something I got into first through spiritual awakening I had during meditation. I was
Ooh.
trying to go into meditative states, but I
Mhm.
ended up going into hypnotic states and would spontaneously regress to significant events that were root causes of some emotions or issues for me. And that regression to this life started to become regressions to past lives. And then when I started working with people professionally, you would not only remember this life and past lives, but between lives, and then the spirit stuff came up. So you'd start finding earthbound spirits attachments, and those attachments might even have dark force attachments.
Mhm.
And then you might find ET devices or ET things happening as well. So yeah, in the past life, so hypnotherapy and past life regression go hand in hand. And there are books like by Brian Weiss and
Mhm.
Michael Newton for Between Lives, but I wanted to include these elements of these earthbound spirits and dark forces that come in. So I guess it's right up your alley as well.
Yeah,
So
I
not
was looking because when you said Brian Weiss, I have a bunch of Oracle decks, and I have his past life Oracle deck. I thought I'd seen it, but it's not there. I was going to pull it out and show.
okay.
Okay, so I got a question for you. Well, probably many, and I'm like that. I just love to have a conversation with people about topics that I find really intriguing and interesting. And your book sounded so phenomenal, and so for people like, I know before I kind of got into my spiritual awakening through my paranormal experience, although always been intuitive as a nurse, had strange, weird, crazy things happen throughout my life that were unexplainable. But for people that don't understand what hypnotherapy is, because there's quite a few people, myself included, back in my university days, you'd go to the pub and they'd have an entertainer there. I remember there was one at one time, and this is with no disrespect, I think his name was Mike and last name with an M. I won't shout him out, but he was supposedly hypnotizing people to get to do very ridiculous things on stage. So
Mm.
people already, and I've talked with many people who are quite afraid to be hypnotized. And
Yeah.
so that's not quite what hypnosis is. I know that, but our audience may not. And also, what's the difference between being in deep meditation versus falling into hypnosis? And I know I probably haven't used the right words. So I've asked you two questions. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? The difference between hypnosis and meditation isn't that much.
I was thinking that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's really close. Like I was trying to be in a meditative state, but there is also a lot of ways to be in a meditative state. Sometimes it's having no thoughts and being in a thoughtlessness and a bliss sensation and trying not to think.
Mhm.
But there are also other meditations where you consciously or visualize deities, or you do reflections on the kindness of beings that have helped you and have send loving kindness to
Mhm.
them,
Mhm.
or some sort of forgiveness. So it depends kind of the kind of meditation you do. And the I happen to be in India in Tibetan Buddhist meditation,
Okay.
and they're really therapeutic. But if you're doing Vipassana meditation, it'll be pretty uh, observe your sensations and your breath, and that's it. But the
Mhm.
Tibetan Buddhists are really sort of put flowers and color it up and have a lot of techniques and exercises. So that is something that is actually pretty similar to hypnotherapy. But also, what I found is there is a spirit, and I'll come back to the stage hypnosis.
Okay.
But so there's a very sort of performative type of hypnosis. It's still hypnosis, but there's on the other side, there's a very spiritual type hypnosis, which is really towards spiritual awakening. And it's the kind of thing. So what I found was, as I sat in meditative states, I'd have spontaneous experiences of having like emotional therapeutic breakthroughs, which is
Okay.
different to being given a suggestion and acting in a certain comical way. You know.
Yes. Well, the biggest thing for me when I realized this years ago, because I've watched people, I had a friend one time that went up on stage, and the things they were doing, I knew they would never do in real life. But as I've learned about it, one of my close friends, her husband does future and past life regression therapies and stuff and has written books. And he has a talk that he actually has recorded. And before someone comes to work with him, he asks if they would like to be open to look at this and sort of understand what the difference is. And when he said that, believe it or not, subconsciously, people are open to the suggestion of what they do. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think they are when they do these crazy things on stage? And then
I mean, I don't actually do stage hypnosis.
Oh, I know you don't. I was making a difference. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean, like I do, but some of my friends do. Some of my good friends do. So it's not something like, so like I've got a good friend. She's Nadine, the hypnosis queen, and she's really cool. She works on cruise ships, so she cruises around the world, does comedy and shows, but she also, and so like so to me, it's interesting. Some people may get a negative impression from it. It's not something that I am particularly interested or want to do, but I am interested in just the techniques. So there's certain types of hypnosis that you need to do in a therapy room, but you don't need to do some other more dramatic type ones. But I learned how to do them anyway, just out of curiosity and just so that I could know everything. And in itself as well, I think for some people, they may be worried about hypnosis, but I think there's a sort of an education process for as many people who is worried about it. There can also be people who are fascinated by it. So I know plenty of people who go and see Paul McKenna, for example, who's a famous English stage hypnotist. And so even with Nadine, what she'll do is, and Paul McKenna, they would both do their stage show. A lot of people who maybe feel afraid of hypnosis and never go further would have never even thought about or even had a possibility to go to it. And other people who never would have encounter it and then go, that was interesting. I wonder why that works. And so both Paul and Nadine do sort of therapeutic or helpful hypnosis afterwards. So you can go to their show, and if you're intrigued afterwards, then you can go and do sort of the helpful therapeutic stuff, which is less stage-based and more, helpful in terms of, working with, limiting beliefs or addictions or habits, that kind of thing. And so from there, so for some people, it's their gateway. So it wasn't for me. My gateway was through meditation, but for some people, the first time they ever see hypnosis is a stage show, and then they go on to be hypnotists who then practice therapeutic hypnosis, but don't do the stage stuff. So, so there's pluses and minuses. I think it's okay. I'm okay with it,
I want to sell people on it, though, in the way that we're not going to say to someone, you have to have it done. And I have to admit, I was kind of nervous because I've had a few done. And I was expecting I wasn't going to remember. It wasn't like anything like that. And the first time I had, I remember most of it, but I've had some since. It's like I said, my friend's husband does this kind of work, right? And I'm so glad that he filmed the last one. And I've never talked about this on air before. And we did go into a past life. But a lot of the stuff that I was speaking of, I really don't remember a lot of it. So I believe that I went into a different brain wave state, but it was really interesting to watch it back. And I'm thinking, where did that come from? I don't think I would have said that. And I found it really helpful. Like I've tried it too with, certain chronic pain issues and things like that. So, but the reason why I found you so fascinating when Gavin suggested your book, I have never heard somebody use hypnosis in the way that you do. I'd love to hear more. Well, never mind. This is sort of a newer term in the last couple of years too, for me anyways, in between lives, as I know they exist, but also, like the attachments and the ufology type things that you've encountered. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. So once you do get into the therapeutic realms, part of it is as well is just understanding the word. And so the word hypnosis is a loaded term. So you can almost replace it by letting your conscious mind go to the back and have your subconscious come to the forefront. So you're not unconscious. You're not out of control. Right. But like you said, you say things that you're surprised that you're saying it. But that's your conscious mind is surprised by what your subconscious is saying.
Right.
So you can pretty much even throw out the word hypnosis if you like and just say, I let my subconscious come to the forefront and my
I like that.
conscious mind my conscious mind stays at the back and witnesses. And like we do this every day. We go into hypnotic states every day,
Mm-hmm.
like naturally. And so that's the other, people think it's difficult to go into hypnosis, but we go like, have you had the experience of driving down the highway and then like turning off and go, oh, why am I on my way to work? It's Sunday, I'm supposed to be on the way to the cafe. And you're like, how did I get here? But you're driving a car. Do you have that kind of experience?
I have, and as you were talking, and I got to thank Spirit for this one, they reminded me when I was around 18, my allergies were really difficult and I had to undergo some surgery. I couldn't take pain medication. So it was a pediatrician we had up here that was also an allergist from South America. And at the time, I'm going to be 60 in August. So I would have been about 18, 19. And he worked with me through hypnotherapy to help try to control the pain after surgery. I still remember this, sitting in a chair and I had my eyes closed and brought my subconscious forth, if you will. And everything he suggested, I did. Like he said, you're going to have a red balloon tied around I think it was my right wrist. Now it's going to float right up. And I felt my arm going up. And the reason why I mentioned the age, I don't know what he used, but I remember wearing a headband and it was attached to this big computer. And I had to get in a certain state that I could control this very simplistic video game, making the egg roll back and forth with my mind. I don't know how I didn't think of this till just now when you were talking. So I've had quite a few experiences, and you're right. How many of us have done that? You're driving, you know the route, and you think, how did I get here? Right? You're in a hypnosis state.
Well, and you got there because your subconscious autopilot was driving the car.
Mm-hmm.
And you were checked out. Your mind was running. You might have been thinking what you're going to eat at the cafe, and you're salivating because the image that you have of the future is more vivid and real than the otherwise compelling situation of driving a car.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, when you're kind of checked out and don't know what's happening, your subconscious protects you. It looks after you. It drives you through traffic. You're zoned out, but you're still safe. And so that just goes to show the protective mechanism of the subconscious. So people can be worried about like losing control or something, but we're kind of out, we're not in as much control as we think we are a lot of the time anyway, because we've got these other subconscious autopilots, like, habitually taking a behavior, so we can accidentally end up on the wrong road, or, just take the turn that we habitually take, but not the one we wanted to take on a Sunday. But we can habitually do other habits, and we want to make a change, but we just keep doing what we're used to doing. And that's partly because it's programmed into our subconscious. And so if we can work with that program and change it so that it works for us instead of against us, then, so it's acknowledging that we've sort of been hypnotized in a lot of ways by a lot of things. And a lot of hypnosis is dehypnotizing ourselves from the existing hypnosis and creating a more helpful one. That makes sense.
You almost answered my question for me, because I was thinking, okay, why does hypnosis work so well? Because it's our subconscious that's can't say the word, suggestible. But I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you answered the question I was about to ask, because it's not maybe that our subconscious is so suggestible, but we're just sort of reprogramming with a better program with the subconscious. Or are we that open to being suggestible with the subconscious? Like stopping smoking, for example. I've known a lot of people, after 1 or 2 sessions, they never want to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, why did we start smoking? And think about what an effort it is to start smoking. Nobody inhales a burning plant and thinks this is delicious.
It's wonderful.
They think, young people think, oh, this is horrible, but eventually they get over that because they want to be James Dean, because they see all these sexy ads, because everybody else is doing it. And all the cultural conditioning and cultural hypnosis means we do something that we don't really want to do deep down, but we manage to hypnotize ourselves into being a smoker. And then a few of the little biological tricks come in with the nicotine. But so we're really dehypnotizing ourselves from the first hypnosis of being a smoker. And so to return to our natural state, pre-being hypnotized by anything. So we're returning to our original state. We're not hypnotizing ourselves to be different from what we are. We're hypnotizing ourselves to return to our original self,
To
the authentic,
natural
and
state.
so our authentic state of being. We're not hypnotizing ourselves to do something sort of unusual or aberrant. It's something which is authentic.
I hear you. I like that. So what I'm going to ask, I don't usually go through the questions, but they're such great questions because Gavin, I always say to him, I don't talk to him all the time, but when I do, I always say, Gavin, I wish you would teach a course how to others, the way he presents people that have, like your book that was published with his company, because he just does such a great job. And I believe you guys submit the questions, if I'm not mistaken. I think you do, don't you?
Yeah, we've got a list of
I can tell because they're always different, but
yeah.
they're fantastic.
Actually, sorry, I just noticed in the chat, Heidi's older sister has hypnotized her. So when she was younger, her sister said, "You smoke this," so she got hypnotized by her sister, and then you've got to so many people in our lives are hypnotists to us, and our parents hypnotize us with so many suggestions and limiting beliefs that we get as well. So that's so much of what we do. So it is, we break habits and patterns, but most of the time what we deal with is emotions and limiting beliefs that get put in childhood by people close to us often.
Are you highly intuitive? Sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you. Are you highly intuitive? Because I was just thinking about something I'm going to ask you, and you brought up about parents. You've done that twice now, and I love it.
Okay.
Because
go ahead. I don't say that I'm psychic, but my wife does. So I believe.
Okay, I said highly intuitive.
Right.
I was going to say to you that I'm aware, obviously, with being a nurse, and I've worked with children quite a bit as well, that, I believe that the mind of a human being I even believe within the womb, because hearing develops within the womb, but children are highly suggestible, like they're almost like a sponge from the age of 0 to 7. I know that the brain's not completely formed until sometimes people say 25, sometimes I've heard those different ages, but I do know from the age of 0 to 7. And I know that with some of the energy healing work that I do and others in this field, and the person obviously may want to change your belief systems. Now, I'm not hypnotizing them. We're looking into some of the things that we might have hung on to that we heard from our parents. And that's what brought that up for me. You said, even our parents do this. Nobody, and I always say, I don't put blame on the parents. I think most parents, maybe not all, but most parents try to do their best with their children. But things like money doesn't grow on trees, or what do you think, we're rich, or we hear these things growing up, right? So where is that due to? I know where the brain is, what the brain is like. I'm trying to say this properly, but including with the feedback we're getting from our parents. That's what got me when you said our parents almost hypnotize us. Can you hypnotize children? Do you need to? Or like, say you're an adult and some of the limiting beliefs that you're hanging on to, for example, from childhood, does that need a lot of work? Or I'd love to hear. I'm going to stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah. Yeah. So, children are almost in a constant state of hypnosis. So one of the things so adults have a critical conscious barrier that filters out some of the conditioning and is more discriminative. But children are pretty gullible. And will accept, and they need to be, because they have to. If they're sitting doubting and overthinking everything, they're going to get squashed. Because you say, don't cross the road now, and they go, well, I don't know if I need to believe that or not. Bang. And so it's their job to sort of just do what they're told without thinking about it too much. And so that saves their life. But it does mean by the time they get to be adulthood, they've got a bunch of suggestions that may be not as helpful, or even things that were helpful then but aren't helpful now. So when you're a kid and someone says, don't talk to strangers, very helpful. But when your parents turn around and say, why haven't you got a partner or a relationship? Well, you
Yeah.
told me not to talk to strangers.
That's what I was trying to say. You just said that so
So,
beautifully. Thank you. So,
yeah, a lot of suggestions can be apparently contradictory,
right.
or they make sense at once. And that's so a lot of what we're doing is not even saying you gave me a bad suggestion. It's you gave me a suggestion that was great, so I'm not blaming you. But what I need to get through my head is that I need to update my programming so
There
that
you go.
the
Yes.
suggest yeah, the suggestion don't talk to people is no longer appropriate, or I
Mm-hmm.
have to, or I can talk to some people, in order to, so that I can become a parent myself.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's actually one of the great cures for, my parents did this or that to me. Well, so did their grandparents and their grandparents.
Yes.
Once you become a parent, you're a lot more forgiving to your own parents.
Well, true. I worked in the NICU and maternal newborn and labor and delivery for a while, and I didn't have kids yet. I could never work in the NICU now, but I remember, mom's gone through labor, dad's up there too. Nobody's had any sleep, and I had so many moms that would say, I don't understand this. This is nothing like what the book said. I have read every single book out there. I just don't understand this. And of course, I wouldn't say it to everybody, but if a person seemed to have a good sense of humor and they'd say, you know what the problem is? And they'd say what? I'd say, the baby didn't read the book. And that's where I'm going with this. So as a parent, right, we take that programming that we had as children and we move forward with it because nobody gives you a book when the baby arrives. They don't. Like, I remember taking my eldest son home. He just turned 30 and we walked in the door and I go, now what do we do with them? Right? So you can see why these cycles could be perpetuated and perpetuated through the
Yeah.
lineage.
There's also a tendency for us to judge things as being good or bad. Like
True.
my mother or father did this or that to me, and that's bad or good. Or it was good that they gave me attention. It was bad that they were away and not giving me attention. But what were
Mhm.
they doing? They were off making money to pay for you, and
Yes.
and also sometimes, and then this is when we start getting into between lives, soul contracts, and karma as well. And so it can be, on one hand, we want to get all the good things all the time, but if that happens, what kind of personality or character are we? And I think we choose the parents that we have
Yes, I
for the
agree.
things for the things they can give us, also for the things that they don't. Because a lot of times, the hardships or difficulties or problems that we have end up being part of the inspiration and the things that we learn a lot from it. And that helps us to go on and be healers, educators, or people in the world. So the idea that I should only ever have like what I think is a good thing, it's sort of like, the kids who just grow up with tons of money and never have to do anything, it gets pretty messy, and
Very.
people who go through challenging situations end up with sort of get some great character. So we have to be careful in our decisions on, what we think is good or bad. And so what I tend to find is some of the resolutions is people come to be at peace with things as they were, rather than thinking it should have been this way or that way.
It's kind of hard to wrap your mind around it. And I
Yeah,
said most people that I've run into in this field, and not being judgmental, but most of us haven't grown up on that, Cosby show or the Brady Bunch, and it was this wonderful, amazing life. But I always
like
say,
sorry, the Cosby Show is an interesting example, given what
not
we know
not
now.
now, back in the day
Yeah,
on the TV,
yeah,
I'm talking about.
but
So
exactly. But it's that it's the point is it's kind of illusionary.
yes,
We've got this illusionary idea of how things should be, and and
because
and a
we're
lot and that
programmed
create yeah,
to see it on TV, right?
yeah,
But that's where I was going with this, right? And once you start to unravel it all, because I truly believe that yes, we choose our parents, and our parents, like you said, once we become parents, yeah, we have a lot more empathy and are better able, I think, to understand maybe where our parents were coming from as growing up. But one of the things I always say is, and if it resonates, great. If it doesn't, that's fine too. But embrace it all because it's made you who you are today. And everything that we've gone through, whether say it's somebody's had a difficult life or they've had a lot of adversity. Well, look where you are today, right? If you hadn't had all of these experiences, you probably wouldn't be the person you are. You might not even have the life that you have now, right? And it's hard for people to wrap their minds around that sometimes, right? Especially if it's been difficult growing up.
Yeah, it is. And I don't want to make it sort of sound too easy. Like, we just sort of accept things as they are, etc.
Oh,
But
no,
this
it's
is
not
what,
easy.
exactly, this is the kind of conclusion that people come to after 3 to 5 sessions of really like getting into the weeds of the dark and hard and heavy stuff after, like hours of, therapeutic regression. That's the conclusion they come to. But it's
Mhm.
not something that, so you can, I find that my clients can say that to me at the end of the sessions,
Yes.
but I don't tell them that as some sort of wisdom at the beginning of the sessions, and
I don't think people are ready for it, maybe. Not that we're being judgmental, but not everybody's ready to hear that right at the beginning, right?
I think basically nobody is. Like, there's work, we have to do the work to get to that conclusion, and
Mhm.
I think, it is even a false, like, people can try to claim a therapeutic resolution before they've really earned it. And so even when I do forgiveness work, I have
Mhm.
to, people say, I forgive, oh, yes, I did have some problem with my parents, but I forgive them. But it's like,
Mhm.
forgive them for what? What
Yeah.
specifically? and
Mhm.
and and how do you let go of that? And like, there are not, like, there's so many techniques and so many specific ways to really know what it is, because it can be too easy and to want to forgive someone and say that you have, but know deep down that you haven't, because you haven't like really done the work to do it. And so that's one thing. And I think I have people say to me, I've forgiven them, but then they're able to, the root emotions are still able to be triggered and are getting triggered in other parts of their life. So that's saying, I wish I could get to that conclusion, but I haven't done the work to get there. And so that's something I often see. And so it's not to sort of make it sound too easy. There's a significant amount of like real work that can be done. And I think it's the kind of thing you notice in the peace that you have in your life, and you're not able to be triggered in other kind of situations. But I think it's actually really helpful, and this is where it becomes helpful again, because I think sometimes people are in some pain, but they're not in enough pain to do something about it. And
That's
it can
just the
be,
way it is, right? People hear that. That's just the way it is. Suck it up. That's what it is, right? I've
yeah,
heard that many times with a lot of people. Hmm.
yeah. But I mean, sometimes some of these painful experiences can be, really educative and helpful in the end.
Hmm.
And it's the kind of thing, even with awakening, you can have the universe can whisper to you to make certain changes. For example, I got an economics degree, and I
Oh,
was
yeah.
working, and so, and I had like a conventionally nice life until the age of 25, but I had this little feeling in the background, just an existential sort of dilemma or feeling that everything's great on the surface. Why does there feel like a bit of emptiness or a little bit of dissatisfaction?
Yeah. Hmm.
And so I didn't have a big healing crisis. I didn't have a big disease or illness or, big therapeutic problems, but I just had that existential sense that became, and so it whispered to me, make a change. But I could have easily just been complacent and sat back in a comfortable corporate job and sort of semi-sleepwalk through my life and got to the end and wondering, I feel like I could have done more. But I had awakening experiences that made comfortable life uncomfortable, and
Definitely.
and forced me into a spiritual path that I'm now really grateful that I took. And so, and a lot of times it is maybe even things like dissatisfaction with your parenting or your society. It's the kind of pain that makes you walk a spiritual path, because there are many reasons not to. It's like it's less financially well paid, it's less understood, all of these difficult things, but ultimately it's rewarding. And so to me, you can save up for material things, but that's all dust in the wind. But if you can save up for some of the spiritual lessons, it's like saving up for things that money can't buy. And I think that is sort of more valuable to take with you as you pass into spirit. That's really, it's walking the talk that, we're not just physical beings accumulating physical possessions. We're spiritual beings accumulating spiritual experiences in this life. And that means taking a lot of risks, and and doing unusual work, and maybe being criticized, and maybe having less money or less safety than you would have, but doing it anyway. And sometimes we need that calling, and we have these weird experiences, like as you're talking about, you get exposed to things at a young age, and then that puts you on a whole different path.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more because, my plan was I went to university, I got my degree in nursing, I got married, I had 2 children that I never thought I'd have, and I planned to go back and become a nurse practitioner and a doctor. And then I fell through a hole in a patient's. It was a community visiting nurse and shattered all the discs in my back. And I hadn't had my second child yet, actually, by then. And it's about perspective, I think, too. And I hope it's okay to share here. I think I may have shared this before on the show. But I look back now and it's taught me many lessons, including just because we think we've got it all figured out, we don't necessarily. The other thing is holding this space and having the patience to just be in a holding pattern when something's one of the worst things maybe that happens in life, to know that there is something in that experience. Now, we may have to process the emotions, some time may need to pass, but there's something powerful in that experience that we can glean as a soul, I believe, and a human being from that experience. And what I mean by that is, I didn't know I was going to have a son with severe autism. I'd hurt my back, actually. My eldest son was, I think he was 15 months old. I had to have emergency back surgery. Ended up having my second son, who I never thought I could, right? I was always told I'd never be able to have children. Anyways, where I'm going with this is, I had met many people through the years that had children, like my son, that had severe autism, that had to give up careers. They had to come stay at home. There was nobody to provide for this child. Yet, I loved what I did as a nurse, but I was looked after the way I look at it. I was able, am I making the money I would as a nurse? No, but I have a pension and I was able to be there for every moment that he needed. And my eldest child, right? It's about perspective and looking at this. I never thought I'd be working in this field. And through the most scariest paranormal, I know we're going to talk about that too, paranormal experience, had I not witnessed it, I wouldn't have believed it with my own eyes. And now I'm doing what I'm doing and loving it, but I would never in a million years have thought I'd be here. Right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. And so, yeah, so it was, I had experiences when I was 25 in my own meditation, but then
Right?
but then I was meditating with a girlfriend, and she spontaneously sat up. She was in meditation, and then she spontaneously started to, and before she went into a hypnotic trance, and I spoke directly with her spirit guide,
Oh,
and yeah, and that was a conversation that actually it's very unusual. Most of the
it
times in
is?
hypnosis, people will remember it, but then we spoke for an hour. This is just before sleeping. We woke up the next morning. She didn't remember anything, and and she spoke and told us. So I'd had messages in my meditation and sort of discounted them and thought, well, that's nice, but I'll just go back and continue with my job and my normal life.
What?
And yeah, and the message was, like they said, you've had past lives together, you've met to assist each other on your spiritual awakening path. You've got these jobs to do in this life, and it's not what you think it is. So I didn't want to do it. I wasn't looking for it. It chose me, and the way that it chose me as well was, I could have gone down the meditative or yogi path, but the experiences I had was just spontaneously. I was spontaneously regressed by the universe to remember, significant times in this life. Like I remember being 10 years old reading a book on hypnosis, and
Wow. Hmm.
and not just reading the book, but using it to hypnotize my mother and my sister when I was 10. It's like I literally had that memory in meditation when I was 25, and I had to call my mother and say, I had this weird memory come up, and I don't know if it's true or not. Am I making this up? But did I hypnotize you when I was a 10-year-old? She said, yeah, you did a really good job of it. That happened. And so that I was really surprised. I needed her to validate that. And then I started remembering what felt to be past lives. I had that same feeling of doubting or wondering, but but my mother had validated this life, and it was the same feeling. So it made me think, and it also connected and made a lot of sense. according to the context of other things that were going on. But I could still try and discount it. But when the spontaneous event of my girlfriend becoming a hypnotic subject and me being a hypnotherapist before I knew what that was, because what happened was the next day she didn't know what was happening. So I thought, what is going on here? I walked out into the small town Pokhara in Nepal, and that was where that morning I found the book Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss. And
Okay. Mm-hmm.
and so then he read and he says, and I was sitting there just talking, and then Catherine started saying these things, and I was like, well, thank God, that's what happened to me last night, and it's happened before in the universe. So I thought I was in the Matrix, or something. I don't know what was happening. I thought the laws of the universe had changed, and I was in some other dimension because there's the entity said I'm another dimensional being come to give you this information. And I was just then, so then there's a process of having those sort of awakenings that now you can't deny it. You can't really question it. And it then lights the fire to go on and learn and to integrate it. And so even as the years went by, I was still thinking, well, maybe all this is happening in meditation. I should be a meditator or a monk or something. But I just kept getting pointed back towards hypnosis and ended up, years later, doing the training. It's sort of funny where things point you,
That is mind-blowing, especially at your age. But I kept thinking as you were sharing this incredible story, and thank you for sharing it, is you just can't put the cork back in the bottle, like especially such a profound experience. But there are people, because not everybody listening to this show knows all about the spiritual type things that we're speaking of. And I hesitate to even call it spiritual because people can experience this. It's just feeling the call and recognizing what it is. And should you dig a little deeper, they're not always going to have the experience you did or that I did. That's the beauty in it. It's unique to who we are in the lifetime we're sharing or having. But there's going to be people listening who are going to go, what is a past life? Like, is this have to do with reincarnation? I know what it is, but for people listening that are saying, what is a past life? Like, how many do you have? Well, why don't I remember my past lives and so on? So I'd love to hear more from you about your perspective. And I'm loving this conversation, by the way. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, so past lives definitely do connect to reincarnation. And so that's how I first got exposed to them. So
They're
actually
real, right? They're real.
Well, I mean, everyone's got their own perspective, and
Okay, I want to
so
hear yours.
reality is a bit fluid. So they're real within Hinduism, Buddhism, which is 3 billion people.
Yeah.
So for them, yes. And I was on a Tibetan Buddhist meditation retreat, and on the third day, they said we're going to break this up and go on a little field trip and go into the town and do an offering. And so next thing you know, I'm standing in a lineup, and there's the Dalai Lama. And we're offering him a prayer scarf. And
Wow.
so he is the 14th reincarnation of the Dalai Lama. He's Tenzin Gyatso, but the position is the Dalai Lama, the high teacher. And so the cultures, any culture that has reincarnation in it thinks that past lives are literal. But even as I was in those retreats, I felt, yes, you can have calm abiding, and yes, you can have focused concentration, and yes, you can have, forgiveness towards, and send loving kindness to people. That's all nice. But reincarnation does seem like quite an Eastern idea or a step too far in some ways for some people. Although there's a lot of, history about it being part of some of the Western traditions as well. But, for me, that was an experience of like, the Buddha, and these people say it's true. And I stood in front of him and shook his hand and got the sense of energy and being. And that sense that I don't think that he's lying to me. And I do think that he is, and it's that question. He says he's, in one hand, he is a simple monk. On the other hand, he's a bodhisattva and reincarnated, enlightened being who's had many past lives as a spiritual leader. And so they don't, and so he won't say I'm enlightened. He'll say I'm a simple monk. I'm doing this job and I have this role to play in this life. And so and I think both can be true in a way, because I think we can sort of simultaneously be spirit and be very human in a lot of ways as well. But so there's that sort of there's a philosophical aspect to it, there's a religious aspect to it, but then there's also a really clinical aspect to it. And so that's where Brian Weiss comes in. And so I'd been exposed to the ideas of reincarnation before, but I didn't know that there was something called past life therapy, which was, which has been developed in the West essentially, and practiced by psychiatrists and psychologists. So for me, that was sort of part of the process of discovering that. And so, we work on the basis that it is it's a functional thing that we can use in sessions. So just as you can regress, in a way, something that happened 50 years ago is in our early childhood, but it's hard to remember. So why don't we remember what happened when I was 3? Well, we don't need to. But there can
Or
be
when you
things that,
hypnotized your mom. Sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you.
yeah,
When you were
go on.
10, right? You didn't really remember. You had to confirm with your mom. Did this happen, right?
Exactly. So there are so many moments that have happened in our life, in this life. And there are 2 things. One is we can't remember every single thing that's ever happened to us. Why would we want to? And secondly, the other funny thing is there can be really important things that we don't remember because we almost sort of block them off or repress them.
I've
But there
done
can
that.
be, and they're really significant, but there can be other events that we don't even know they're significant. But when you take someone into a hypnotic state, they realize, oh, that was actually the root cause of this important thing. And I thought it was nothing, but it is actually really affecting me. And so there's so much that we don't know about this life. So people say to me, like, I want to know who I was in a past life. I just think, but
Does
as
it
if
matter?
like I know, well, you know what? It's like the implication is I don't know who I was in my past life. But the thing is, most people don't really know who they are in this life either.
Agreed.
You
See,
know?
the reason why I believe past lives are real, and I know about repressed memories, including things that happen in childhood, and then something very awful happened to me when I was probably about 4, and I started getting flashbacks of it, and have done some work to uncover what it was, and still have work to do with it. But the reason why I believe in past lives is, again, not only studying your death experiences for 40 plus years, professionally and personally, I am fascinated by children who have come into this lifetime, can tell you who they were in the previous life. One child, I believe it was in India, solved the murder of himself in the previous life and incidentally had a birthmark exactly where the wound was that took his life. And there's too many children that know this and are so correct. Like, so to me, children are innocent when they come in, especially very young. Like, why would they be talking about this? Or, I do you remember when I was your dad? Do you remember that? I mean, there's so many kids that I've heard say this and whatever. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that's really well documented. Dr. Ian Stevenson wrote
Thank you. I couldn't remember his name. Thank you.
yeah, there you go. I mean, he wrote a bunch of books and did like 40 years worth of study at university, and traveled around the world, not just and he did go to India
Yeah.
and Thailand, Burma, Cambodia, but he also did a lot of work. In fact, that was his initial study, but he didn't want people to think, oh, this is just an Eastern thing with Eastern kids. So a
Right.
lot of his case studies, he ended up emphasizing going back to the United States. And so it's not just a cultural thing. So I'm starting off saying it's a Hindu Buddhist kind of a thing in terms of the numbers, but I think it's not limited to those places by any means. But the thing is with those studies, what they find is these kids like 3, 4, 5 years old have these memories and can do that. But what he found was by about the age of 7,
Yeah.
they forgot and couldn't remember anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so that's so I don't work with children doing this. So that again, that's kind of like children are just sort of automatically in hypnosis a lot of the time. Therefore, you don't really need to, there's some of these kids you don't need to hypnotize them; they're already there because kids are kind of a bit like that. But once they become, as their critical conscious barrier grows, then they start getting cut off from those memories, and that's something I see. So I talk about, wow, I saw the Dalai Lama, my girlfriend did this, and isn't it amazing? But the thing is, a lot of my clients and students all have some sort of a variation of these kind of stories. So it's not to be, special in any way. I think so many people do. In fact, it's even as you say, you said, as you talk about that, I haven't thought about it for a long time, but I'm getting this memory.
Yes.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And so like that happens so a lot of people think, Mark's story sounded amazing, but as I talk to people, most people that I meet, I'm a bit biased. I have a biased like sample size, but most of the people that I meet have these kind of experiences as well. So that's kind of the reason to share them. So that it sort of triggers people's memory. And so many people also, maybe they don't remember past lives to that level of detail, but they do have, experience. And that sort of goes back to that point about smokers.
Yeah.
So we can have these spiritual awakening experiences, in our 20s or 30s, but we had it when we were a kid. And a lot of people remember I had some sort of abilities, and then as I grow into this world and adapt to it, I lose them. But then our spiritual awakenings are sort of reawakening to what was our authentic self that we're born with anyway. So it's not that we're doing anything special, we're just remembering what was already there the whole time.
I couldn't agree more. And I always say, I'm helping. I don't work within the paranormal all the time, but I will help if people need help. But I have a questionnaire that I go through. And one of the first couple of questions I will ask people, do you have young children or pets around you? And if so, what are you seeing with them? Because my belief, and I may be completely wrong, I think we all can be very intuitive. People don't recognize how powerful their thoughts, their words, and their emotions are when we break it all down just to energy. And I think that the reason why, never mind that young children, I think, are closer to where we come from than where they are completely, if you will, grounded on earth yet, but also they're innocent. They know nothing of hate, right? A child's work is play, and they live in the now. So we have the physical that you described, not physical, but biological, that starts to develop as they get older, right? That causes us to forget, many of us. But also, we don't play so much anymore. Kind of like what you mentioned earlier, right? Things that were okay, as a child that we heard, but as we've grown into an adult, it's kind of like, that what you've been told as a child doesn't quite meet up with where you are in life now. Same thing with children, right? They start to get told, well, that there's no such thing as that, or it's all just your imagination, or you're really getting too old to be talking about this kind of stuff, right? And it's not meant with ill will. It's just like, as children mature, they're expected, there's certain roles to play and stuff. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a challenge because we don't want to be childish, but we can be childlike, and
I'm
and so
still a
that
big
is
kid. I'm
right.
still a big kid. I tell everybody that, and I still am. I know I'm not being
Yeah,
ridiculous that I think I'm 20, but
yeah.
my youngest son passed away very unexpectedly, January 15th, and of pneumonia in my arms, actually in this room.
Mm.
And he was the one with the autism. And I remember it was a couple days later, and I said to Spirit, I hate the way I am feeling. And I have worked in death and dying, and I have a real passion for that field. And I've lost people close to me, but not my child. And what I got from Spirit was, the only way through it is through it, meaning you've got to feel the emotions, you have to process them, have the grace, and give yourself that space to be able to. Some days it's not going to be a good day, and some days it's going to be okay. But the other part that I loved, and I followed it to a T, and I still do, was find little moments of joy every day, right? Find things that because it changes your mood. You get kind of lost into something, and it doesn't matter what it is. If it brings you joy, of course, it should be legal. I should put that out there. It should be legal,
Mm.
but right, and that kind of helps us with this. And then I don't know, like, it just came into my mind as I shared that. Do you work with people, say, that have extreme grief? Have you worked in that field at all with that, to be able
Yeah,
to?
abs
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely. And so that is something that it can be fresh or it can be a residue that's there at some point. And
Mhm.
so even when you talk about death and dying, past life regression, you go to see who was I in my past life.
Yeah.
What you're also going to see is your past death. You're going to see that.
Yes, I have seen some of mine, but please talk about that, please, because a lot of people get scared when they hear that.
Yeah, well, and so that you said about, I've got this catchphrase as well, which is you've got to go to it and go through it to get beyond it. And
Everything
so,
you just say so succinctly. It says it much better than the way I did. I like that.
and so like going to it means not avoiding it. And so
Right.
sometimes people might come like for the habit, like maybe, oh, I'm drinking too much or I'm working too much. Well, that's because you're not going to the problem. Like, I'm drinking because I'm trying not to feel these feelings. I'm
Yeah.
working because I don't want to go home and face the difficulties of my marriage. And I'm just going to let my marriage be not very good for the next 10 years and pretend it's not happening, and be addicted to Netflix and work and just not face the facts and then stay in a not particularly healthy situation. I can get away with that, like I can be complacent or, it's not painful enough to do something about it. And
True.
so that's part of just avoiding it. And so that, and we're and people, by the way, we all do it. I do it. But
You do it.
sooner or late, everybody does. So sooner or later, you decide I've got to go towards that instead of away from it or denying it or rationalizing it away.
Or
And
going around
then,
it, round, around, around. As soon as you get close to it, you don't cut. And I have to admit, there are some things I'm just not ready to go to right now.
yeah,
And I know they need
sure.
to be dealt with. So exactly, I know, but we all do it in our life, right? And then once
Yeah.
we do it, how many times has anybody said after you finally do it, you might be dreading it and you go, it really wasn't that bad. It was more the fear of it or just facing it and starting, if you will.
So true. So
Mhm.
true. And I mean, true also, a lot of like, just, you don't have to go to everything. Like if you think, oh gosh, I've got these four issues, like just like let them be, let time go. You're allowed to put things off for a little bit. Otherwise you could be overwhelmed. But absolutely but the trick is once you go to it, and you know what, in the end, you feel like it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
But in the process, you might think, I went to it and now it sucks. I'm going to go back and double up on the drinking or work addiction because I
Mhm.
went into the darkness and I looked at it and I didn't like it. I mean, that's one of the things in meditation. You sit there wanting to have peace with the universe and rainbows, and you realize your old mind is just reciting some old BS, and you realize I'm a bit of an a-hole, and my
That takes courage. I call
yeah,
that
and
the
that
proverbial mirror, right? It's so
yeah.
easy when, say, somebody comes to you or I or anybody else and asks for advice. It's so easy to see what the issue is because we're on the outside looking in. And again, part of the teaching or whatever working with clients is, and I'm still work in progress too. So I tell them I'm not perfect, but to hold that proverbial mirror up to your face and have the honesty and courage to look at it. And you just said it so succinctly. Maybe I'm an
Yeah, and
a-hole, right? And you got to face that.
yeah,
I want to be that. How do
yeah,
I fix it? Hmm.
yeah, which is actually quite a good thing because now you're sort of taking responsibility for your own actions. Because if
Hmm.
you look at the deep, dark, truthful mirror and what you get out of it is everybody else is an a-hole and I'm perfect, now
Yeah.
you're in real trouble,
Yeah.
you know? And then you'll just back up and you'll become a workaholic. You'll get all of the money from being a workaholic, and then you'll use that power to punish people who you blame. And that sort of kind of works in this plane, in this world, but it's not healthy in the long term. And so if you can be honest and just have that honesty and authenticity to see some of your own flaws, so that way you're not, we talk about parents, we can blame or complain about our parents, but if we
Hmm.
think, well, how was I, as a son or as
Yes.
a
Daughter.
grand, yeah, or parent myself, and then so then it becomes, it's not about me forgiving them. It's like I forgive myself for being so judgmental or critical of them in the first place. And
Hmm.
so a lot of forgiveness becomes transcending the idea of forgiveness, and yeah, and you know what? And so then once you face some of that dark stuff, you can sort of like go halfway and then back out, or just get stuck halfway. But for me, you got to go to it and then go through it. And so that's actually where people come for therapeutic sessions because they get so far on their own, but then it's very
Yeah.
easy to get bogged down, and that's where it's helpful to have somebody else help out. But that way, you sort of you see the dirt on your face. Maybe you can scrub some of it off,
Yeah.
but if you can get someone with a water hose to really clean it off,
Yeah.
then you come out. That's when you come out the other side, and then you're at peace with a lot of stuff, or you're sort of beyond forgiveness and transcendent, basically.
I couldn't agree more with you. I just realized I get into these conversations and I realized we got to do our station ID, and a few people have popped in. So if you're just tuning in, you're listening live to UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio Network. And this is the Angel Rock, and I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin, talking to the wonderful Mark Beale. We're talking about hypnotherapy, the work that he does. He's got a new book out there. The second part of the show, I know we're going to dig into some of the case studies, and I'd love to talk more about your book and the ufology stuff and all the things. So we're going to get there. We are being broadcast to you out of 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast and Mississippi, and 107.7 FM out of the beautiful city of New Orleans. I'd like to thank Joe Montaldo, who's the one that we're actually broadcasting out of his, I believe it's his home. He has his beautiful home on the bayou. I've seen pictures. It's gorgeous. And he provides this space for us, all of the hosts here and the people that come together. So thank you. I want to give a huge shout out also to Michelle DeRoche, who is our station manager, and a little birdie. I don't know, time went by too quickly, you guys, but I just realized Michelle has the Outer Realm on Wednesdays and Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But she started I'm going to call it a second show. It's on Tuesdays, I believe, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's called Beyond the Outer Realm. And guess who's joining Michelle tomorrow? Me. So we were talking today about some of the things we're going to talk about. So I hope you'll be able to join us. And if not, there's always a replay of the shows wherever podcast and talk radio is carried. Thank you so much. I'm really enjoying this conversation. I knew I was going to have so many questions because I really do believe in hypnotherapy. I also believe that it can really change your life. And I've seen some people it's changed quite quickly. Have you noticed that as well, Mark? Or do some people need more, like a lot of sessions?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's like I think 3 to 5 sessions is a really good program with a beginning, middle, and end that can get really deep as well. So I mean,
Mhm.
if you've got a relatively simple, really well-defined issue, and you've got some background, then you can, it's amazing what you can do in one session. So I used to work in these fancy sort of 5, 7 star resorts, and sometimes I wouldn't get to do the program that I wanted. It's like I'm flying back to New York tomorrow. I want to do a session, and then they'll come.
Mhm.
I'll see them the next year, and
Mhm.
in fact, I had one guy say to me, "Yeah, we did that session last time. I don't know if it really changed me, but my wife thinks that I'm a new man."
Oh, okay. You didn't have much time to work with them either, right?
Yeah, but it was actually a great experience. Like, so, being forced to do things. So it was really great learning. So when I became a teacher and mentor of this, I've done every possible variation of it. But I think I've settled on, when I can, lay down the preferred terms, 3 to 5 sessions. 3 rarely is what I tend to do. The sort of like 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours, but beginning, middle, and ends can really do a lot.
Mhm.
And yeah, but you have, I have a call with people as well to define the issue, because really people bring a presenting issue, and just really knowing exactly what it is that you're working on, and what people aren't, they do their best and they fill in their intake form very well, but it's very hard for our conscious mind to really understand what's going on. So I can sort of speak the language of the subconscious and see what they're saying beneath the surface. But
Mhm.
again, this is where things get unusual. So just in, Brian Weiss, he's trying to take someone back to this life and they go to a past life. And sometimes we have the intention to go to a past life, but then these spiritual things start popping up. So like I had a guy, there's a case study in the book,
I
he
was just going to
wanted to,
ask you for a case study,
yeah.
so please go ahead. Mhm.
So I've got this guy, he wanted to do like phobia, like he had phobia of bees.
Okay, I was
And
going to ask you about phobias. You're just covering it all right now. Thank you.
yeah, beautiful. And so he was living in Costa Rica, and
Mhm.
a tropical place. He was actually an online poker player. But he
Okay.
was sitting in his sort of tropical, half indoor, half outdoor living area, and a big bee came in and buzzed him when he was trying to work and make money, and he freaked out and sort of had a phobic reaction.
Oh, wow.
And but then he met, and so he stuck like that was his presenting issue, what he wanted to work on. But then I had him fill out the intake form, and he said, "Oh, by the way, I've got some other stuff going on. Like I've been bullied a lot. I was bullied, intensely to the point of suicide or homicide when I was a kid."
Oh, that's
And
terrible.
it's sort of like these bees, he sort of felt like they were bullying him. So
Ah.
So it's not just that there's an insect buzzing around and you're overreacting. It reminds me if I'm being unfairly attacked.
Trigger.
We actually, I'm even just remembering now, when he was a kid, I took him back into the time in this life, and he remembered being hit on the back of the neck by these, spit pellets that people shoot at you like pea shooters. And like the whole class just peppered him for like half an hour and all laughing. Nobody stood up from all his friends sitting there sliding with the bullies, that kind of thing. He's getting stung by these things as a kid. Then he gets stung by this thing and it triggers and brings up these sort of old issues. And with that, and he also said, I carried this residue of deep anger and pain. And also, by the way, I'd never believed in the soul or anything, but I had this, not even the soul or past lives. He didn't believe in reincarnation 6 months beforehand. He still didn't exactly believe in it when he approached me. He really wanted to do this life. But he also said, oh, by the way, I had this really weird dream where I was like met an ET and they took me up to their place, and there was sort of this long story. And he said, I woke up and I told my girlfriend that, and she said, out of those 10 things that happened to you in that dream, I had the same dream, and all 10 things happened to me last night as well.
Oh, wow. So there was a lot more to unpack than I bet.
Yeah. Exactly. And so this is like, we still only had, I think it was three or four sessions, but we covered a lot. We did this life regression part. We went into a bunch of past lives. And from that as well, he even said, and he felt that he'd been, taken up and even, harvested for DNA, etc.
Yep.
And that was actually something so that was something that had opened him up to the possibilities. But that was something that had happened in the past. It was about 6 months later. But what came up was, and this is what I see with ETs, is that he perceived in a hypnotic state at an energy level that there was a device attached to him.
Okay.
And I've seen this happen with a bunch of people, and I've noticed there are various categories. So sometimes they're just trying to gather data and observe you. Sometimes they're running experiments. Sometimes they may be, you were an ET in a past life, and they're just sort of like reminding you of whatever task that you have. So in some ways, it may sound, again, like, is something good or bad? And I'm very slow to judge anything as being good or bad. Things just are ultimately. But my question is, how is it affecting you in these moments? And if it's creating dis-ease, anxiety, stress, worry, if it's against your sovereignty and your desires in this moment and your intentions, then maybe it's something that we can work through. And if it's part of your life plan, then it's helpful and can be fine. So it can go either way. So yeah, now we're really getting into it, right? We've gone from bees to ETs.
Well, you know what I was thinking, just to add to that, he talked about the bees and he talked about being severely bullied. And as you were describing the ET thing, and I know, cases are confidential, but it almost felt like, once again, he's being bullied, like he's being pulled into, an ET ship, and basically sort of it feels almost like, again, something being done to him, like he didn't volunteer against his will, again, almost being bullied again. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that the type, so I mentioned there are a bunch of different types and categories of ETs, and in this case, the way he described it was, it feels like it's like a leopard that is stalking me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm the prey. So he was kind of anxious the whole time, and they were just sort of in the periphery, and like leopards like walk around the savannah the whole time, and all the antelopes know where they are, but they know they have to keep the right amount of distance. But they can never really relax because they know at any point that they could go after them. And so the way that it was is like when we discovered the device, he described it as being, like it was hunting me and stalking me, and I didn't really know it. I was anxious. I was always anxious. I had a lot of anxiety in my life. And it's because I had this I didn't know that I was being stalked, but I had the anxiety as if I was. I didn't know that I was, but I still had the feelings.
Subconsciously, he knew.
Exactly. Yeah. And then when we found the device, it was as if like the thing that's stalking, like in fact, it's preying and it's sneaking up and it's hoping not to be seen. But the minute, and so it was really sneaking in. He didn't know where it was. But then once we found it, we found out what it was, where it was, and then the minute that you know where the leopard is, suddenly everybody relaxes because the leopard knows, well, now they will know I'm here. I can never close the distance. The hunt is off.
True.
And so for us to find that device, so it was like that broke the spell of him being the prey. So it's like, we know you there. We know what you're doing. We know your game. We know we've got this distance and shield. You can't get to us. And now the game is up. And so I was then able to actually communicate with these ETs.
Oh, wow.
And so through him, so he's in a hypnotic state and he's saying things like, I'm perceived. So we perceive a device is there that's monitoring him. And then I literally say to him, and I said, does this device have any sentience or consciousness? And so people then might think, well, maybe this is just all made up story. Maybe this is just a case of anxiety.
No.
Maybe he's making up. He's read all these ET books and he loves ETs, but he'd never read any of these books and he doesn't care about them. I personally don't even read up on this stuff. Like I read sort of Buddhism and meditation. I never really read up on spirits or any of it or ETs. I never, like
doesn't lie, right? The subconscious has no need to lie, right? Like when you're in a state of hypnosis, or am I wrong?
Well, it could sort of bring up things that it's fascinated with. That's kind of an explanation, And so like even Dolores Cannon is another writer that I haven't mentioned because I'm actually kind of not that fascinated by what she does. Like, I love Brian Weiss, Michael Newton, William J. Baldwin. Dolores, for whatever reason, I'm just not that interested. But she's really into ETs. And like, I'm just sort of not really. And so like, I don't want ETs to come up in my sessions. I don't even really know. I don't know. Yeah, but they do. I don't know much Palladians, Acturians. That's about all I know. So all I want, I don't ask, what star system you're from and get into all the weeds about the details. I just know, are you helpful or unhelpful for my client so that I can get the
you want your client to get better, right?
Exactly.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, but then I'm not that interested, but in general, like, in my spare time, I'm not particularly interested, but in the session, I'm interested enough to say, okay, guys, so I'm interested to know, you've got a device in here. We found you. You were stalking him. He's not that happy about it, or he doesn't intend it. And so what we can do next? I would literally said to him, so it could be like maybe this anxiety is just anxiety. But all this talk about hypnotherapy means like if it was anxiety, I know how to work with anxiety in this life already. And so like you could think, oh, you're just an ET guy who doesn't know anything about therapy. Well, therapy is my bread and butter, and that's what I do most of the time. So if it wasn't, I know how to work with anxiety on its own, and I know how to, and we did work with the anxiety from this life, but then there can be anxiety from past lives. We actually found past lives where I said he wanted to kill people, like the people that bullied him. He did kill people in past lives, and realized that wasn't the solution. In fact, he realized like he had somebody killed, and then he had his own throat slit himself.
Oh,
so then he realized I wanted to get people bullied me in my past life, and I wanted to get revenge on them, and I did, and I killed them. But what I learned was, you cut someone's throat, you're just cutting your own, and that doesn't work. And he even actually said, but his past life self said, I killed that guy, and he had other people kill me as revenge, but I won because I lived longer. And then as in this life, as the client, he said, I just heard my past life self say that, and I realized how dumb I am. And now I understand what karma is.
Ignorant, not seeing all this to be able to pull from all these lives, right? But I hear what you're saying, yeah.
Exactly. And so like you realize, and so we all go through these learning processes, and like for a lot of times it sort of does work. Like if you want stuff, you can either make it, or you can just get on your horse and go and steal it from people. And that's what tons of civilizations have done, and so that's part of the human condition and the human experience. But so there are all these layers. So there's the emotion, there's the past life incidences. But then we do get into this device. And so then I said, does this device have any consciousness? I said, in itself, it doesn't. It's more like a technical thing. It's sort of existing at a psychic energy, multidimensional level. So but it does connect, I'm feeling this pain, behind my ribs or something, or on my spine. And so it does connect to a local part of the body, but energetically. And so from that, the device didn't have consciousness, but I'd say can we connect to the consciousness that installed the device? And it says yes. And so then, and it says, and so I say, what is that? And he goes, it said, we say, we found this device. And he said, well, we found it, but we're going to continue with it. And I said, well, I now invoke the law of universal sovereignty, which is that we ask you to remove it. And by the way, who am I speaking with? And he says, I'm a technician. And I said, I don't know if I've got permission to do this. I'm like, well, can I speak to your boss? And like, you just go through this whole story of discussing with, this is all my client perceiving this, but it's the same thing. Like you said, I don't know why I'm saying this. Like you can do it about, I don't know why I'm saying what I did when I was 10. You didn't know what you were saying there, but it's like, so he's also, there's a part of him witnessing going, why am I hearing a voice saying that? Why am I giving these things? But I'm able to have these conversations and ask a very specific set of questions to get specific information. And that enables us to get to a resolution. So in the end, I was able to talk these technicians in, partly saying, wouldn't your boss be upset if he found out that you've been discovered and your experiment has now been done?
Yeah.
And then, by the way, we asked you to remove this device. We don't want to. Well, why not? Isn't that device going to be useful? It's not helpful here. You could take it back and repurpose it or use it. And they said, oh, okay. Or, in fact, that will happen sometimes. In this case, actually, they said, oh, look, we're leaving. We don't care. We don't care what you're saying. So sometimes ETs will actually be helpful. Sometimes they'll be really neutral, and sometimes they'll be a bit unhelpful. In this case, they just sort of left, and we're able to find, and this is where we bring in something like his spirit guides, Archangel Michael, and his inner wisdom. And he was able to, he described it as being, he could take with his energy and with the help of his guides, a sort of a cold fusion, which sort of exploded it in a cold. And that was able to destroy it and remove it from his energy and sort of, and then release and break the whole connection.
That is mind-blowing. I believe every word you are telling me, but how powerful this is to be able to facilitate and work with these types of people having these experiences. But I am dying to share this with you because I'm looking for somebody to, I want to have a hypnosis session to find out what happened. So it's a little bit of a story. I'll try and go really quickly though. So Joe Montaldo, he has the International Center for Alien Research, or ICAR, and he has a website, icar.net, I think. And there's a 20-year plus study on there of people that have green eyes, red hair, and Rh negative blood, because I've heard him say 20,000 years ago and 70,000 years ago. So 70,000 years ago feels right. Before that set of DNA genomes or genes did not exist in the human genome DNA. So where did it come from? So what the study has, just a couple of questions asking, have you had alien abductions? Have you seen a lot of UFOs and such? Okay, I don't have any of those attributes. My mother has all three. My mother does not believe in any of this kind of stuff or anything. But when I was in my previous home, and I've lived in the city my whole life, I know the city like the back of my hand, I hadn't slept a lot, and I got in the car and I was just running to the store that was by car 30 seconds away. I went to the lights. I blinked my eyes. When I opened them, I was miles away. I swear on my children's heads. My car was in the opposite direction. I was in front of a building I have never seen, and I've never seen since. It was rurally, like in the city, but rurally. And it was a half-dome building. There were broken out windows. And the reason why I'd opened my eyes, like that's how quick it seemed to happen. There was an hour and a half of time missing. And it was my hubby calling me saying, where the heck are you? I thought you got in an accident or something. And I had to say, I don't know. He's going, what do you mean? I don't know. I said, I don't even know how I got here. I'll call you back. I was surprised I got cell service. I have never been able to find out what happened during that time, ever.
Okay. Were there any consequences or side effects afterwards?
No, not really. No, I don't think so.
Do you have okay. Yeah, so oftentimes the people that I work with will be having like significant side effects afterwards, or that kind of experience.
The only thing I could think is probably my abilities had been, if you want to say, at a higher level than they were when I had that experience. I don't know what happened. And it was as quick as me doing that and opening my eyes. but the
Yeah.
time is missing. I don't even know where. I couldn't find this building again if I tried, because I was a traveling community visiting nurse when I hurt my back, right? And I had a lot of the rural places. I know the rural roads out here. I have never seen this building before. I was shocked that I even had cell service. I have no idea how I ended up there. It's not like I drove there and was in a hypnotic state. Like, I remember closing my eyes to blink, opening them because my cell phone was ringing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, this definitely happens. So recovering memories is something that people can often want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the, the next question is like, if you have a theory or idea about what happened.
I feel, can I prove it? No, I feel I had some kind of ET experience.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of experience could that have been?
I feel like I've been inside one of their ships. I do.
Okay.
Sounds
Well,
crazy, but I do.
yeah. But well, and for what purpose? Like what? And what do you think happened when you were there, or might have happened?
Check in, see how things are going. I don't know if didn't have any strange, unusual marks on my body or anything, but almost like a check in just to see what's going on with the body, with life, but no, I feel like I was on the table. There was like I was there for an exam. Mm-hmm.
Okay. You also mentioned like your abilities
Mm-hmm.
felt
Yep.
enhanced. Is that right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's often one that I see. So I don't really want to put words in your mouth or anything, but it is something where, and so I'm careful not to do that, not to suggest to people what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah. So I wouldn't really want
And
to
I see
speculate.
UFO-y type things all the time now. I swear to you, I'm not calling them
Yeah.
UFOs. I'm not calling them aliens. They are literally
Yeah.
things I have filmed in the sky at nighttime. Julie, who is here, Julie Jean Bassett, can definitely concur that I had one of those moments, because she sent me a picture of a full moon. It was in November, and she thought she had picked something up on the picture. And I said, "Can you get video of it?" And of course, my husband goes, "That's a lens flare." I go, "No, lens flares are usually white." And it was a bit of a green mark, right? So I go outside to look at the moon. We don't live by one another, by the way. She's in the US, I'm in Canada. As soon as I pull my phone out, oh, he was right. It was the lens flare. But as I'm watching, and I voice message everybody because I talk to so many people and my phone thinks it knows how to spell better than me. So I was voice messaging her and I'm going, "Holy crap, I gotta call you back. I don't know what this is." And I sent her the video. So she's still here. She'll tell you. I don't know what this was, but ever since that experience, now I got goosebumps and it's not cold, but I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I mean, even that thing, I think so people will come to me when, for example, they'll have difficulty sleeping, they'll be having nightmares, they'll be having anxieties,
I have
worries,
a lot of
doubts.
those nightmares. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, and maybe even people like one of the case studies on my book is somebody who she was interested in channeling, and she was channeling ETs, some of whom were really helpful and wise,
Mm-hmm.
and she felt, but some of them she didn't know who they were. And she was wondering how wise they were. And some of them are definitely really light, but sometimes some of them could be a bit dark.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is where I don't want to sort of judge, and this is why I'm asking you questions and not making
Oh,
too
please
many
do.
statements.
That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah,
I'm intrigued. So
yeah,
ask away. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So and like with that, and so what I find is a lot of people have ET experiences that are quite positive and don't have any negative side effects.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe part of reconnecting, like people can even set
I know
intentions.
what I was. I know what I was beyond a shadow of a doubt. I have no idea why I know, but I know what it was.
Wow, can you do
I
you
hear
want
it
to
as
say that?
loud, as clear as a bell. I
What was
am
that?
Lyrian.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and Lemurian, did you say?
Not Lemurian,
Yeah,
Lyrian. Like cat people.
Lyrian.
Cat people
Okay.
from.
So
Mhm.
gotcha. Yeah. So do you feel that were you Lyrian in a past life, do you think?
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There
Mm-hmm.
you go. And so this is what I'm talking about. And so the people I work with are often for therapeutic when something's going wrong, or or there's some mixture and there's a confusion. I'm not sure if things are good or not. But if you're like things are going well, I'm getting some sort of upgrade. I'm reconnecting with my past life self. I might be getting downloads from
I
In my past, exactly. There you go. So in my past life, I was them, but I'm now connecting to them. Maybe maybe they have a long life and they're still alive, or your friends have reincarnated still on that planet, and you're
right.
here, and now they're sending you information, and they're like checking in with you, and also one of the case studies is that she was channeling some of these beings, and they'd actually put that she had agreed to an experiment, and they'd put in something she described as being like an egg, and it was to give her some sort of upgrades, powers, or abilities,
Mm-hmm.
but it was also an experimental upgrade. So what she found was, in her past life, she had been an ET, or
Okay.
I can't remember which one it was, Palladian or something,
Mm-hmm.
and she'd agreed, and she was connecting with her Palladian friends who are still Palladians.
Mm-hmm.
She had then taken on the human body,
Right.
accepted this experiment, seen if it would give her upgrades or not, but it was now creating problems, actually gynecological problems,
Oh,
urological,
yeah.
and in her base chakra problems, affecting her relationships, reproduction, all so physically,
Mhm.
emotionally, behaviorally, all kind of blocking. And
I'm
so when we got
literally
in,
hearing, I have to say this, so I don't know why I'm
yeah,
hearing it was not compatible with the human body.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And so so the egg-like thing, it didn't work. And so again, once again, I tapped into that device and then connected back to, and this time the ETs so we found the ETs that implanted it, and and that's how we learned about she was these guys in a past life, and she had this intention, but the thing is, what happens again? It's like something that used to make sense or was good in the past no
Right.
longer makes sense, and it's turned from good to bad. So we can't judge. We can't judge things as being good or bad. But in the end, it was now having an effect that she didn't really want. And so what we did was I said to them, guys, this is here. In fact, I even asked, what's the status of this? And they said, oh, actually, we put it in a long time ago, and we've kind of haven't really checked up on it. And so like you'd had that checkup.
You
Exactly.
haven't,
And
but I've had to deal with it.
yeah, exactly. And so like it was literally us saying, like, it's like if your car sort of, is like running bad, like, well, let's get it serviced. And if you don't service it, well, then it's not going to go. So that's the situation with her. And so it was a matter of us saying, guys, like she's having like significant problems. Can we remove it? And they were saying, well, no, we're running an experiment. And so again, like now I'm into this block. So then I have to
Mhm.
creatively think on my feet, and my client's sitting there going, oh no, what are we going to do? I want
Yeah.
to remove it. They don't want to remove it. They're telling me that there's a contract and I agreed to it in a past life. Am I stuck to that? I made a vow. Do I have to
You're
stay
not
with it?
stuck. You're not stuck because I've had an experience very quickly with my
Yeah.
Akashic Records mentor that went in with my permission and dissolved prior contracts and agreements, and it worked. It did. Anyways, go ahead.
Absolutely. So, I see, so it's exactly what I did as well.
Yeah.
So they said, you made a contract. And I said, well, that contract was based in the past. We're now amending the contract.
Yes. Yes.
And let me, by the way, this contract, what was the time limitation on it? Did you specify it? They go, no. So in
You're so
perpetuity.
smart.
That's not a great contract, is it? And they're
Mhm.
like, oh, no, they were kind of like being smart Alex at the
Yeah.
beginning. And then as I sort of like, and they're saying, no, you can't do this, and we've got this contract. And as I did all this countering, felt like, oh, well, I suppose that is true, and you've got a point. And so we agreed that to break that contract, or that we could update it, and that she didn't have to have it. But I also said, guys, you're running an experiment. The results of the experiment are in. We've learned that when you implant this in, it
Yeah.
creates these emotional, physical problems. It's not that I'm asking you to, we're not in competition here. I'm not asking you to do something you don't want to do. I'm telling you the experiment has come to a conclusion because we've got
You've
this
got your data.
information.
You've got your data.
Exactly. Exactly. And so now and so they're also thinking, I don't want to look bad in front of my boss.
Yeah.
And so I'd say, it's not that, some human came along and told you how to do your job. It was a human came in and we've got you can tell your boss, we've got the result of the experiment. We've learned this.
Facilitated the retrieval of the data. You facilitated the retrieval of the data.
Yeah, exactly. Or like we know what the data is now, and like it's like, you guys have been asleep on the job a little bit. Now we can update you. And then, but they're still like, well, what about this device? And so, the other case study, we destroyed it. In this case, they said, what are we going to do with this egg? And so I said, well, this was what I said, can you repurpose it or take it back? And they're like, oh, actually, we could. It's actually got a lot of, useful kind of components. We could just take it back. And so so instead of me saying, please release it, it was, I managed to frame it so that it was like a win for them. And then so again, they were kind of more helpful. Like the other ones just left us alone and we had to zap it. But with these guys, we're able to like discuss the terms of unwinding the contract. So it's not just break the contract, it's renegotiate it to the point of, how do we dissolve all of the assets?
And a win-win for everyone.
Exactly. And make them look good in front of their boss. And just as they were leaving, they're like, okay, that's all done. And we go, thanks for helping us. We're like, well, thank you for giving us information. You've helped us with the experiment. And then at the end, I was like, well, hang on. If you're doing that with my client, have you got many eggs and other people on Earth?
Good thought. Yeah.
And they said, yes, we do. I said, how many? They said 200. I said, well, can you check the data on those ones? How's that going? And they said, oh, give me a second. They did a Google search or something. Then they came back and said, oh, yeah, actually, pretty much it's not really working with any of them. It's causing problems all over the place. So I said, well, how about you retrieve all those other 200 and you get 200 more resources? And they go, oh, okay, sure, we will do.
That was so brilliant of you, because most people, I don't even know if that would have, like, you were thinking of others. Like, thank goodness you asked that, right? Like, good on you is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it was like Columbo, just like one more thing, and it's just like it's so it is amazing. Like, and so you can just to be curious and to just again, that was an intuitive question that popped into my mind, and I'm glad I got it. So yeah.
No, but you know what? You just weren't able to help the person that came to you. 200 people that were probably living a very miserable existence, it sounds like, right? And we see this all the time in the medical field. I can tell you this beyond a shadow of a doubt, that people come in with a lot of illnesses that are very debilitating, life-threatening sometimes, but there are no answers to why they're experiencing these things. Or infertility. You said gynecological. I'm not saying she had infertility issues, but it could, and just because modern medicine doesn't have an answer, where I would hope one day we might get to the point, because you were able to help how many other people by thinking on your.
It was a good question, but I suspect I might have read something like that in the book. So I should say this as well. Spirit Releasement, a Technique Manual, is an excellent book. So that's, I'm not making this up.
We're running out of time. I have so
Okay.
many other questions for you, so I'm going to put you on the spot. I would love to have you back in the near future to talk so much more about this. I'm loving this conversation with you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah.
So is somebody singing in the background?
For me?
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of. I might. Yeah.
Somebody is singing. Like, it sounds like Kevin, Z-Sun Dragon, just said, did you hear that? Oh my God, you got to hear that. It sounded like a choir was singing. And if I can hear it, I'll probably hear it on the replay. I'd be happy to clip it and send it to you. Yeah, everybody's hearing them singing, and I heard it too.
Cool.
It was so cool. So what was the technique you mentioned? Because I still want to give you a few minutes to be able to tell people to find you in your courses, but I've loved having you on. I knew I would. We didn't get into the 7 spiritual laws. Well, so people are going to have to buy your book, but still, I'd love to hear what you just were talking about. And I'm going to botch the title you used about spirit removal. Is that what you said? Or
yeah, I just want to give a shout out to William J. Baldwin, who wrote Spirit Releasement Therapy, a Technique Manual. Yeah, so, and that's where I got a lot of these ideas, and so even like I tell that story, but I had this, and a lot of it is really being creative and flowing in the moment. But sort of it's knowing that you can, if you find yourself in this kind of situation, or if you're a therapist or a hypnotist in some way, you can ask these kind of questions and be really creative and think about ways that you can get to the best possible therapeutic resolution and ask these kind of questions,
Okay.
and you never know where it takes you. So I just give that as an example. And if all of this sort of really tickles your fancy, I actually have training courses on spirit releasement therapy. You can go to my website and get training courses on it. And this William J. Baldwin's book's an excellent one. It's the size of a telephone book, and it's quite dense and difficult to get through. But if you love it and this stuff, then you'll enjoy that. Otherwise, my courses sort of simplify it and make it a bit easier as well.
I signed up for one of your courses today, one of the free ones you have, and I plan on going through it. You guys, you have to check out Mark's website. Like I was really impressed. Like I don't like to watch interviews with somebody before they come on because I want to have a very organic conversation. But I saw that you had a YouTube channel, so I took a 1-minute peek at that because I wanted to at least hear your voice. And then I looked at your website. I was super impressed. So we only have a few minutes, but before I'd love for you to let people know everything about you and what you have. Stay tuned, you guys, because Dolly Saffron and Preston Dennett are coming up next with the Light Gate right after this. But please, Mark, please tell them where to buy your book and your courses. You guys really do have to check his website out. He's got some incredible courses on there. So go ahead and tell them all about you and what you do. Like, do you still book sessions? Like everything. What you got coming up?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm still a practicing hypnotherapist and past life regression therapist between life spirit release. So I do sessions, so people can book me for individual one-to-one sessions. And I do all of that work online now. For 15 years, I never did anything online. For the last 5 years, I've done everything online.
Cool.
And so that's as a practitioner. As a teacher, I also actually did a lot of in-person training, but now I do it as online mentoring. So, because what I found was you can teach, people, classes, but then they go out into the world, and it's, so what I do is I mentor people through their first 6 months and through 30 real sessions that they give to clients. And
like
so that really, and that's that. So a lot of people are sort of dabbling in past life regression or hypnotherapy or amateur or hobbyists.
Yes.
People decide. But half of my clients are actually like psychologists or professional healers, in the medical field, nurses, doctors. And so they kind of need to be really good straight away. They can't sort of dabble around and learn on the job. They have to be kind of expert level straight away. So the mentoring helps with that. And other people find they've done a few years of spiritual healing and they're good at it. But if you want to make past life regression your full-time thing, kind of good is probably not quite good enough to be a full-time professional. You have to be great, and the mentoring sort of does take it to another level. So I do that sort of really one-to-one mentoring and through really practical application, doing real sessions with real people. And then the book, and so I've got a podcast. If you can go to Past Life Awakening Institute YouTube for the YouTube and the podcast version. And then the book, I've got a little book tab on the Past Life Awakening Institute page, and it is published by a publisher who put it out like around the world, I believe. So you can get like paperback or hard copy, Amazon, but also a lot of the other like regional websites should have it. So I've got links to all of those on my website, or if you Google, my name, it should come up with a few listings.
I want to thank you so much for being here, for everybody in the chat. Sorry, guys, we didn't get to a lot of comments, but I'm hoping I was seeing your comment. And I know Mark was looking too. Yeah, there's music again.
Okay. Actually, you know what? It might be a neighbor.
Oh, that's okay. It's a neighbor. That's no problem. So I'm going to have Mark back. It may not be till December or even the new year. That's how far we're booking with the show. But I would love, there were so many questions I didn't get to ask you. So thank you for being here. If you guys ever want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me on facebook.com/AngelRock. At the moment, I will be putting my first course out. Hopefully, we're aiming for the fall with my very close friend, call her the Crystal Wizardress, or you can find her under the Crystal Architect, Leanne Clark. So look for that. Then I'll have a domain domain name, but you can also get a hold of me on any social media platform. If you can think of it, I probably got an account on there. I have 2 groups, and also you can book with me. I do psychic and mediumship. I do Akashic records. I do crystal Reiki, energy healing. I do teaching and mentoring as well. Lastly, 2 groups on Facebook, and I've got Paranormal University for all things paranormal, Angel Rocker Tribe for more things spiritual. And don't forget, Carrie, I'm going to be on Michelle's show tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard. I think it's 2. I got to double check, 2 or 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Beyond the Outer Realm. And then we have Beneath the Hollow Moon, Carrie Lynn Shellhorn, who has Spirit Switchboard on Fridays, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on UPRN. We co-host Beneath the Hollow Moon, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursdays, and we're talking about the. I think she titled our banner "The Magic of no, it was the Magic Wisdom of the New Moon." So we're going to be talking about all the energy and things like that with it. We love you all. Everybody's saying great show. They all loved it. So you guys stay tuned for Dolly and Preston coming up next, and I'll see you on Thursday. Next week, we have Azria Beckham coming on. She's the one I've been talking about. So she's supposed to be doing my DNA. So we'll see what comes up. Anyways, love you guys. We'll see you next Thursday.